You're coming through loud and clear.
Okay, I guess we got 3 mics.
One for each.
More mics than we need. Good morning, Charles.
Hello. How are you?
Fine, how are you?
Fine.
Good.
You're fine.
Good.
Yeah, we tried to go through this, your debrief last night, the printed one. This all the stuff that you guys did on tape, your tech debrief, to get those so that we try and not repeat, only amplify stuff. And so we've tried to come up, we don't have much time to do that, but I hope we got most of that stuff. And
Okay.
if you think we're hitting some area that you think, is a conflict with that, we'll yell and tell us, and we'll
Alrighty.
change her around. And some of the things, now there were some things that you guys said yesterday, when I was in the project debrief that probably bear on some of these too.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ed.
It's cold in here this morning. Yeah?
Good morning, Bill. Hi.
Hey, Craig.
Are we using those mics?
I don't know. They're hot or not. Found them on the floor.
Before we, start asking questions, identify yourself so
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
that transcribing know our voices.
Yeah.
Say who
Okay.
these people are.
Somebody know about sources of calcium, sources of potassium in the diet.
Sources of potassium in the diet.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that from somebody.
Yeah, I think Smith and Rapp would know
Yeah, I'd like to know how much we really had.
Yeah, I don't know offhand.
Yeah, I don't either,
that. We don't have any.
but that's some stuff I'd like.
I saw a picture today that was a lot better than the one they had yesterday.
More interesting too.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we're on the door of the...
Okay,
Yeah.
I got some things here that I thought I'd we will say a couple things about. So you can look at the requirements as a first thing.
Another one, the audit.
We should have
Yeah,
sent me
yeah. Yeah.
That's gonna be hard to do.
and watch the action.
I don't know.
There isn't anything you can do. I heard what you did.
Okay, the show's all yours.
What kind of a format do you have in mind today?
Okay,
Questions and answers.
yeah, questions and answers. I guess we ought to, for the tape, identify this Dr. Berry and for the medical debriefing, and I'll try and ask most of the questions. If people have some here, we'll try and hand them in that way. If they're not, will you identify yourself? And I think they can identify you guys' voices pretty well already on the tape, so there shouldn't be any problem with the tape thing.
Chuck, I think we're going to have to peak up those mics.
They're not loud enough?
It's a little down, yeah.
Mr. Bernhardt.
Where is he?
I'll take care of it. Probably outside, I guess.
Can you get him to turn them up some?
Well,
We can yell for a while here if it'll help, and then we can get them to turn them up some.
give us a test count.
You just speak up loud.
1,
One,
2,
two.
3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2,
I
1.
think it's coming out of those.
that where it's coming from there?
Craig will get somebody in.
Ah,
They got Tom.
Try it again.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Test out.
It's not any better, it's way down.
Ah,
I think the knob's wrong on this.
Mark, you
reading
just
loud and clear back there.
well, it's not coming in there,
They're not
though.
getting it loud enough in there.
They're not getting it in there.
Okay.
We can hear them great, but they're not hearing us very well.
We're hearing both of you real fine back there. They want that mic turned on.
Yes, inside.
Inside. The speaker, not the mic.
Okay.
It's better whatever they did.
I set it on the minimum setting in here instead of the max. The max seems to be me and vice versa.
Oh, really?
Hey, that's a lot better.
Okay, that did it.
Okay.
It's labeled wrong.
They're just screwed up in there.
That's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear now.
It's great.
Okay, that's good.
Okay,
Beautiful.
good show. Okay, I'm going to start a little bit out of order here, but one of the things that sort of pervades it all is medical requirements. And in this section 27, you had some comments about the medical requirements, and I thought we ought to just get one question with you. In explaining the medical requirements, we had one opportunity to do that with Deke, of course, at the time that we're trying to get the medical requirements document published. The only opportunity we really get to go over that with you was at the 30-day briefing prior to the flight. Now, did you guys feel that you had an understanding of what the requirements were? Because when I read this, it sounds like you did not. Is that true?
I think I read the forms, Chuck, and understood in general what you were after, at least the number of sessions we had.
I think it's a question of degree here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of the things we try is a very valid thing, like Al's comments about, you should substantiate the requirements. No question about that. They should be clear. They should be clear to you in the sense that you ought to know that what you are doing is worthwhile and the stuff is used and it isn't wasted somewhere down the line. Somebody isn't just doing it for fun.
Yeah.
And we try, that's something we try to iron out pretty hard in our own house. And one of the things I'd like to do is if you guys end up at sometime before the end of the quarantine period here and have some time, we ought to have that data together by then, and then prior to the time that we end up getting you out, if you've got an hour sometime, we might be able to go over with you and show you, here's what we saw with you with the lab data and the whole bit, and say, because it's very hard to get back together again after you get out of here to do that sort of thing. Everybody says they'd like to know what happened to them. We could do that to you in here and tell you that, and here are the samples that were used to do that, so you have some idea, understanding about how that happened. Would that be worthwhile to you?
Yeah, the comment was made not from a point of view, a specific complaint about our flight, but just, I think, a continuing understanding between the two directorates.
We agree.
Ahead of time, because it's the kind of thing, well, just like with other scientific experiments, unless the crew understands the reasons and agrees with it, the thing isn't going to be a successful experiment.
Amen.
So the comment wasn't made from a point of criticizing anything specifically about our protocol at all. Just to reiterate what everybody ought to know but doesn't always think about.
Yeah, good.
And I think, Chuck, also, probably the last few weeks before flight is not the time to try to brief the crew on the medical requirements. At that time, their thoughts are quite a bit on other things, and perhaps it needs to come earlier than that.
That's a good point.
I think each one of us is concerned with ourselves medically, as the medical effects, the physiology of flight, et cetera, but the last few weeks, you just can't get yourself cranked up to really think about those things, except for the things that are going to happen to you so you can be mentally prepared for it.
Right.
I think I may have precipitated that comment, at least when we got to that area and started that, about And I guess it really wasn't a complaint, Chuck, as much as just a statement that it's a drag, going through collecting urine for 24 hours and so forth. And,
No question.
I just wanted to toss it in that you sure hope that it's worthwhile, and I think it would be interesting to sit down and see what you're really doing with all that.
Good. I think that's really needed because we're trying to do that right now with the Skylab crews to tell you what we really know about what happens to man, what we know from the Russian side of the thing as to what's happened on even their longer one, put the thing together and say, here's what we don't know and why we need to know it.
Well, I think we understood, or I understood your need to work out the total body water bit, but the actual mechanics of how that fit into a 24-hour urine collection 6 times and all the blood drawing and how that all fit into the picture, the theoretical picture you were painting for us, I never understood that.
Good. Okay. Fair enough.
I think everybody understands all these things. Why don't we make a specific recommendation at this point? Now, all the flight crews have a training plan which is set up about the time that the flight crews are designated, and includes all kinds of things on the simulators and scientific briefings and everything else. And why wouldn't the best way to do it would actually to schedule the time for medical briefings early in the training program? Because I think if you all, conversely, if you all feel that an experiment's worthwhile doing, you want to get your protocol settled early in the game so you have all the equipment or whatever you need ready, so that it will be a satisfactory test. So I would suggest that maybe sometime something be scheduled in the crew training program early in the game.
And I should
Where it
think,
becomes one of those things you've got to check off, like systems briefings and everything else.
and I should think that briefing should consist of a bit of the theoretical thing you're trying to do, followed by the mechanics and the protocol.
What that means to you.
Yeah, that's right. The mechanics of how you go about doing it, and the number of punctures, and where you're going to do it, and how many urine samples, and that sort of thing.
Great.
Just so the guys understand.
Great. Okay. Will do. I think that's great. I'd like to go back and pick up one then on the exercise area. You mentioned this in the debrief, and you mentioned it again in the yesterday. But can you give me some idea? Now, you said you missed, as I remember the debriefing statements here, you commented that you missed 1 day on the way out and 1 day on the way back. And can you say what you did in time, what the exercise consisted of, what you did roughly in time? I know you won't know to the minute or a second or anything, but as roughly as you can. And then if you have any idea, did you try and judge what you did as far as, did you try and get a heart rate increase, or did you try and judge your exercise level in any way? And this is particularly important for us in trying to separate out the effects that are different between the two of you who are on the surface versus Stu, who was in the spacecraft all the time. So we want to keep that, we want to get that straight if we can. Could you just sort of brief the exercises to the way you did it? Maybe each of you have to do it because you probably did it differently.
But what we were shooting for was about a 10-minute period per day, exclusive of the 2 days of lunar surface activity for the two of us. And Stu was going to try to get about a 10-minute period per day for including those days. The method of exercise during the 10-minute period was to use this ExoGym device which we have, and to operate that in such a fashion that the old, what they call the big four, where you start out with your legs and your feet in 2 loops and your hands controlling the friction device from a crouch position to a full stretch out, and do that several times. Then hold the fixed loops and use the legs on the movable loops, and then hold the fixed loop with the toes and use the biceps on the movable loops. That's the general pattern that we tried to follow, but we didn't make all of those time periods. We missed the first day out because of, well, we didn't have it scheduled the first day out.
Well, it was in the flight plan, but we hadn't, I don't think anybody's gonna exercise the first day anyways.
No.
Yeah. In fact, it should never have been in the flight plan to exercise the first day.
Pretty hard to get that in that first day. I don't
We
see how
had
you
the problem
do
with
it.
the docking probe, so that puts them behind.
You don't really need it in that first day anyway.
Pardon?
You don't really need it in that first day. The truth be known.
Well, in retrospect, I think that it would probably have alleviated some of the sore back muscles that first day if we'd gone ahead and done it. In my case, anyhow.
It was kind of like one of those things where they said, okay, you want to exercise, we put it in the flight plan. I said, yeah, we got to have it in the flight plan, we won't do it. Where are we going to put it? I said, put it in before lunch every day, before the mid-meal every day, and that's how it got in there.
Okay. Now you said exergym, or is it the exergenie?
Extra gym, I think.
Exergym's a trade name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're both similar devices.
It's the same thing. It's the friction one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And so 10 minutes a day is what you had programmed for the thing. And did you have any? Do you have any? Did you feel that you really got a fair amount? Did you get up any increase in breathing rate or heart rate that you were aware of when you did it?
Yeah, we didn't do it quantitatively, but certainly.
Yeah.
I always tried to stop short of cracking a sweat. It's just not desirable to get all sweaty in the spacecraft. And I felt like I was pulling it somewhere around 10 to 15 minutes. I could feel the heart rate going up and the breathing going up, but I would never do it to the point of a sweat.
Okay.
And it's not a vigorous exercise, it's more of it's a tension exercise.
Right.
We put enough load on it to where it was a hard pull, but a slow pull.
Okay, Stu, did yours go about that same way then for the whole time, even when you were
No,
alone?
I'd like to just summarize exercise. In my case, I probably didn't exercise as much in retrospect as I would have if I were doing it again, for various and sundry reasons. One is, you don't feel a need for the exercise. You just got to say, well, I'm gonna go do this. And there were a couple of times that we got out the, it says exercise period, so we got out the exerciser, and Alan Ed'd have at it, and I'd be doing something, or I'd say, well, I'll put it over here and I'll get to it in a minute. And then I know on one occasion, several hours later, I finally got around to getting it and doing some exercise on it. I'd say probably 5 to 10 minutes was the length of time. I would strain pretty hard. I didn't work up a sweat, but you use this thing, you can use it about any way you want. You can drag them through the ropes, or it's really designed to where you hold and do an isometric first, and then go right from the isometric into the isotonic, and you get the whole schmear. So I'd hold pressure on the thing and strain against it, and you can strain as little or as hard as you want, but I'd strain reasonably hard and then relax the tension and pull it up. But I'm trying to think. I'm sure that I missed one exercise period on the way out completely that Alan Ed got in. I did no exercise at all in lunar orbit. Thinking of the exergym was never even crossed my mind for those 2 days. And then in preparation for entry, I said, boy, I'm really going to hit that on the way home. As it turned out, I barely got in the one exercise a day that we did on the way home. So I would say overall, I'm sure I didn't hit the exergym as much as I probably should have.
Okay.
I don't know how, from my point of view at least, how you, in a case like this, where you're trying to correlate the relationship of the exercise that Ed and I did, for example, and its benefits or lack thereof with respect to the lunar surface period, which was over 30 hours. I just think the basic workload there alone is enough different to put that exercise thing down the noise level.
That's
its contribution down the noise level as far as the two of us are concerned.
I think that's probably very right, Al. And I think the thing we want to know is, was Stu trying to make up for it in some way with exercise in the spacecraft? Because he obviously, there's no way he could make up for what you were doing on the lunar surface.
He was
I don't
trying
think
to, but he had a real busy flight plan.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think he could do it. And this is what I wanted to find out. Was he trying to do a lot more or something during that time? So.
No, I wasn't. I think that'd be a difficult thing to try to do, really. I don't know. You're going to, maybe with the longer period in lunar orbit, CMP may not be quite as busy, or maybe. I suspect he probably will be. I think it's going to be difficult to get in much exercise there. But no, I wasn't.
It's going to vary between individuals.
Yeah.
So it was obvious that Stu's greater interests were in running the spacecraft, and for example, the B-23s took a lot of time, which you might otherwise have allowed. That was this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. That if you're going to get individuals to try to exercise and respond to exercise, then you're going to have to get to them early to explain the benefits or the crew as a result of that.
Right.
Because it really is an individual thing.
That's right. And we haven't tried to set any numbers of times that you do anything or anything like that. And so I think we need to really carefully look at that as an area. Okay, Ed, while I added one that came up yesterday when you guys were talking about Myrtle, reminded me of the problems that you had in flight with the urine, kinking of the urine hose and so forth. How much time did you make a conscious effort in your own particular case, because this is important, trying to chase down your status post-flight here, of the time that you had the in-suit urine device on? Did you have it?
Me? Well,
Yeah.
it wasn't my hose, it was kinked, you know.
Right. It was Al's.
Yeah.
I get her twice Al's was, is that right?
Yeah.
Apparently all the time.
All the time.
We,
Apparently.
Oh yeah.
we had it on, I guess we have to look back on the transcript or look back over the flight plan to know when we took it off the first time. We all unsuited at the same time, which was about 6 hours, 7 hours into the flight, all right? Somewhere in there. And we put the UCTAs on PDI morning, and we took them off only when we got back to the spacecraft after docking. And it was on for those 2 periods only. And I never experienced any discomfort. I never had any problems whatsoever that we discussed pre-flight. No symptoms, no of any sort.
Great. Well, it looks like, you know, we haven't had any, and you did well. How did you feel? That's another one we might just get out of the way. On fluid intake, it sounds like you all thought the water was great, and so you were drinking well. Were you trying to force fluids? Were you trying to consciously force fluids?
Yeah, I think
You and Al?
in my case anyhow,
Yeah.
I tried to take a drink out of the water gun about every time I went by it. I did find that I preferred the juices to water, and surprisingly enough, as much as I did not care for the juices pre-flight, particularly, I didn't crave them or anything, we were drinking a couple of juices per meal a large portion of the time. I was. And in addition, taking a shot from the water gun about every time I'd go by it.
I forced myself to drink the water, not that it tasted bad or anything, but just to keep the fluid intake up. And so I would drink water, you know, like Ed says, every time you pass the water gun, you say, well, I think I'll try some of that, and one person would take a drink of water and pass it around and would put it back up.
As I understand, though, you stated in the debriefing you felt you drank about half as many juices as they did.
I'd say that's probably a good average. I'd say probably a third less.
A third less.
Yeah,
in juices.
Mhm.
Yeah, you drank 2 juices at some point.
Yeah, I drank 2 occasionally. Toward the end, I was drinking 2 more than I was, because a lot of times you drink a cocoa and a juice, and I'd bypass the cocoa, and I'd just drink a juice. So I'd say probably, and this is a wag, but I'd say a third less juice than they did.
Okay.
Well, I think I kind of decided I was going to try to do everything I could to end up in as good shape as I could at the end of the mission, which included keeping the fluid intake and the food intake up, as well as the exercise. and that's generally what we try to do.
You did a great job of it, I might
We
add.
had to try to get 2 juices per meal most of the time.
Okay, there was a question here about for you particularly, Sue, did you eat more, do you feel, while they were with you, Al and Ed were with you in the spacecraft, and when you were alone, eat and drink better? I saw in your food thing.
Well, I'd say, excuse me, go ahead.
I saw in your food comments there that you had difficulty, the food preparation thing you'd have preferred if you'd have had some canned things you could have opened quickly and gotten to when you were alone that way, and I can surely understand that. I think it's something we ought to look at. But
Well, that's the way I did eat.
Yeah.
Because we had them there. I guess it didn't come out right because that's the way I did eat in lunar orbit. I would say, I'd say the answer to your question would be yes. That I ate more when they were in there, but the idea of people being together is nothing in that. It's a time factor.
yeah.
During the coast phase, you have more time to worry about eating. During that lunar orbit phase, I didn't have any time at all, and any extra time, and particularly with the troubleshooting the Hicon and so forth. So I didn't have the inclination nor want to go to the trouble of trying to mix up a meal as such, and I didn't much like going to all that trouble anyway. So I opened up, a can of that chicken salad, I think it was, and I had that for breakfast, and then a wet pack, and that's the type of food that you can really get to in a hurry and eat.
Right.
So I wouldn't say overall that I probably ended up eating too much less, but it was a little different rather than sitting down and mixing up a rehydratable pack and so forth.
So the total amount you don't think was any different because you're there, but it was just different kinds of food then?
It may have been a little less, but
Do you personally feel, now the weight loss is involved here, yours, that they, you got 1 pound each here and you got a 10-pound one, and I heard your comment about the scale yesterday too, but do you have any personal reason why you think there's that much difference in the weight loss? I mean, is there anything that that you personally tried to account for it other than food intake, water intake, or anything of that sort?
no, I'm not sure that there's anything magic about the 0G or the flight. I would suspect I'd probably lost several pounds if I'd eaten that same menu and sat right here. I probably think that I was 3 or 4 pounds overweight when I went into the flight. As a matter of fact, I'm not a big eater, and during most of the time you come up on training, I drink a can of Sago and a can of V8 juice for breakfast, and then I'd eat a sandwich for lunch, and maybe drink 2 or 3 cans of beer and eat a sandwich in the evening. And yeah. I can go for days on a menu like that, and I don't know how many calories all that adds up to, but it's not really a high calorie diet, and I would say that pretty much was my diet for 3 months prior to going into quarantine. Was just about what I stated there, and then when we got into quarantine, well, then I started eating more for breakfast and eating a bigger meal in the evening. And so I think I probably was 3 or 4 pounds heavy going into the flight. And so I think the weight loss may be overplayed a little bit, because I think I had a few extra pounds, and then plus I don't think that maybe we picked the right weight up on the rolling scales. But that's neither here nor there,
Well, we can probably show you something about that from when we get your lab material pulled together. I think we'd be able to give you a better handle on that as to whether, it really was something that had to do with the 0G state or not. We hope we'll be able to do that. So we'll try.
Well, if I could just add a general comment, which I think reflects the consensus here, the three of us, that with respect to the food in general, the type of food, the method by which it was packaged and so on, and the degree to which we liked or disliked it was primarily a function of the level of activity in the flight plan. That the business of going into the pantry and taking time to select foods and drinks and so on is fine during the quiet periods at coast. That things like spoon packages are good if the level of activity is not too high, but certainly if the level of activity is high. The wet packs and the cans, and that's about all you want to take time to fool with. I think this is a general comment that really reflects our consensus.
It was a time-consuming part of the day to prepare meals, get them out of the food box, get them all laid out, cut all the tops off of them, get all the water into them, get them massaged, and go about eating.
Get the pill back in there when you're through. You know, it took a lot of time. It's an effort.
You're right.
And you know, it's a lot easier to open up a can and a wet pack, and then you think it's a lot of trouble to even mix up the juice. But you know, that in that way you got your meal and you're through and you're on your way.
Right. Okay. The cooking problem, quotes, is still a problem.
It's still a problem.
Which has been fairly common, I guess.
Yeah, I think if you got plenty of time, you don't mind spending an hour or so.
As a matter of fact, it's a very pleasant hour.
Yeah.
It gets rid of that time very effectively.
But I would say in my case that watching these guys eat, you know, they went right down the menu, and so I thought, you know, I really should do that, but I just didn't have an inclination to eat that much. You know, even though you know in your own mind, you know, hey, you ought to do this, you know, and you ought to keep yourself, you know, eat just as much as you possibly can. I just couldn't get around to doing it. In fact, several times I'd mix the food up. And then by the time I'd eat a couple of packages, you know, I just couldn't get to the third package, and so I'd put it back in the pantry.
Well, Stu, one of the things that's going to come out of that is somebody, you know, reading the debriefing itself. The obvious question comes up: okay, was your lack of appetite itself, was it just plain lack of appetite, or did you really have any discomfort in your, as far as the gut was concerned at all? Anything that you felt was pathological in your loss of appetite due to the environment or anything?
No, I don't think there's anything of that. Like I say, I think it boils down to a lot of just too much food. You know, if you bundle up one of those meals and there's just too much there to eat.
Were any of you ever thirsty in flight? Did you
were
feel
dry.
thirst?
Yeah, you were dry quite a bit. You know, you'd have a sensation of dryness, and you'd want, and water, you know, or juice would make you.
Want some water.
Yeah.
Did you, while we're at it, we might just wipe out the water thing. Did you guys drink the water in your suits? EVA?
I did.
Ed drank all of his. I just drank about a third of it, I guess.
About a third.
On the first one, I don't know how much of mine I drank. I thought I emptied the bag, but apparently the walls of the bag got around the drink tube, and I didn't get it all out because it drained down around my neck during the sleep period.
Okay.
I had a leaky one also, which I took out between EVAs.
Okay, did you fill them up again then when you went out second EVA? And you think you drank about a third of yours both
I'd
times?
say, yeah, I didn't really stop to drink too much.
Yeah. Okay.
And I drank on mine the second EVA, and I can't remember whether I drank it all or not. If I didn't, there may be some still in it.
Okay. All right.
Hey, one other comment on while we're on that eating, before I forget it. We ran completely out of these bite-sized packages, you know, and to me that was the best thing we had. These little, you know, turkey sandwiches, cheese sandwiches, and that sort of thing, because that was a no-sweat operation. You just clip that off in a can of juice, and you could go at it. So I really liked those, and I ate all those generally that I could get my hands on, and we ran out of those.
Well, we ran out of most everything else too. I mean, just about anything.
No, not really. I had all kinds of food.
If I may make a comment, if you don't mind, about his eating and drinking habits. This flight plan is really something that he worked on and developed before the flight. It's a busy flight plan. It's a full one. And it was my impression that he was more interested in being sure that the flight plan was done properly than eating.
Oh, yeah.
I think that affected it to a
Sure.
great degree, which again gets back to the level of activity versus the, if you guys can get a little, for example, those drink bags, get a little diaphragm on the end, just stick over a needle and pump the water in that way, and shake it up, pull the plug out and drink it out of the same deal. That would be a lot easier for those drinks.
I mean, for the juices and things, you mean?
All the cutting.
Yeah, so that you don't end up having to sort of feel you got to drink the whole damn thing once you get it done.
You see, you got a drink bag and you got a little gnarled thing that's all sucked in, the plastic is all folded down. Unless you
Right.
got it exactly right, first of all, you can't get it at the nozzle without having it leak. Then you get it all done, then you got to go cut the other end. And I was just thinking maybe it might be an easier way to put a diaphragm fitting on there that you could stick over a hypodermic type of thing and get the water in that way. Might be a little bit quicker way to do it.
Okay.
Anything you can do to make it easier is going to help increase the consumption,
Right.
particularly during busy time periods.
Okay. But could we get you? Now this is going to involve just really Al and Ed. We'd like to have you describe as well as you can the things that you did with your bioinstrumentation harnesses because it's very hard for us to be sure exactly what happened. We don't have that stuff back yet. We're going to set up. We've got to develop a plan to troubleshoot it. And as the thing that happened with yours, Al, just from our
You want
point.
the actions, not the words, huh?
Pardon?
You want the actions, not the words.
The actions, not the words, yeah. Okay. Well, you said some of the words too. But from our point of view, what happened with your particular harness is everything was fine when everybody left the MSOB. Okay, when you got into the spacecraft. Right after you got, apparently when you were getting cinched down somehow, because we had about 3 minutes or so after you were in the couch of good data on you. Then we began to get erratic data. It began to wander, the baseline began to wander all over the place. That continued to get worse and worse, and pretty soon it was going just full scale, which was totally unreadable. So the question was, okay, it was a question about hatch closure at that point in time. We decided right then. I said, well, hell, we're going to go without that because I'm sure it's a sensor, and the only way to get at it anyway, we asked you then to try and press on those things. If that wouldn't do it, if that wouldn't reseat it, then the first opportunity would be when we got you actually in flight. Now, we don't know why, but it came back. It was gone still. When you went over Australia, as you came back up on the States, magically, there we had data. And we went back to the MSOB from the firing room to Quetzat Pass, and there you were, whap. That was beautiful, just as if nothing had ever happened. And you hadn't done a damn thing, because then we asked them, had you done anything? Now, as we understand, when you looked at that sensor then, that you did have some material had leaked out from underneath it, and we understand that you replaced that sensor, you cleaned up and replaced that sensor. Is that right?
We didn't replace the sensor, no.
Okay.
Just to
Cleaned it off, refilled it, put a new sticky back on it, and put it back on.
Yeah, okay.
That was the second day into the flight, though.
Yeah, this was
Yeah.
like the second day.
Right, yeah. That was the first time that we really, and that we asked you to do that then because we thought we'd get it out of the way before you got into the, okay. Now then you had another.
They also changed the adapter, the CWG adapter, because at one time in the flight they said my comm wasn't very good.
Yeah, your comm was terrible, right.
We had a spare adapter, and so it changed that. Now, exactly when that was, I don't know, but
That was pretty early too.
I think it was the first day, probably.
Yeah, I think it was the first day.
Al, that was the
That
Lord's.
wouldn't have anything to do with the launch problem, because of course we're
No.
using a different,
No, and we had a respiration on you. You can see respiration, but we didn't have the.
that's good.
Yeah, but we didn't have an ECG.
They're very reassuring to me.
That's right. Good.
Hey, Al, can you correlate the reappearance of your EKG signal with any flight plan activity that you might have been doing?
I sure can. I'm just as mystified about that as you were. I tried to press it through the suit
Right.
and everything.
It
You know,
happened.
you can't feel anything through the suit.
Well, you were free then, though. You had your helmet and gloves off.
It was 1 hour and
Yeah.
30 minutes GET, Al. I don't know if that rings any bells to you.
Helmets and gloves are off at that time, and we're moving around with the post-insertion checklist, and there's some movement in the couch, so I dive in and get some things and pull them out, unstil that sort of stuff.
It's just got to be that you were probably it was in the cinching down in the couch that it probably loosened that edge of that sensor somehow a little bit, and I don't know why.
Or put a crimp in a lead, or
Yeah.
brought it into contact with something else.
Yeah, because it sure came back fine after that. Okay, then the second time, what else then did you have with yours, Al, from your point? What else did you do to the thing then on it?
The only other thing I noticed was about the next to the last day, that the thread coupling between the sensor line, sensor harness, and the belt, the little transducer in the belt.
On top of the signal conditioner.
Yeah, it stripped the threads. I could get it to hold a little bit, and apparently the signal was fine, then it would slip off.
It came back beautifully when you tightened it.
But then, when I unsuited at the end, I noticed that was loose, so the threads apparently stripped on that. Apparently I got it cranked down too hard.
Did you routinely disconnect that connector at the signal conditioner for sleep or for bowel movements
Not
or
for
anything
sleep,
like that?
for bowel movements and for swabbing down, cleaning out process, yeah.
Anytime you pulled your clothes off, to either change clothes or put on the LCG or use the blue bags, what have you, we all have been doing it.
Okay. And then you didn't replace anything. You didn't have to reseat any sensor after that. That was the only other thing you had was the
That
signal.
was the only time I took a sensor off.
Was that first time?
That call was correct, because when you took it off, you could see the seepage of the electrolyte.
Right.
Same with the,
Okay. How about yours then, Ed?
The only thing I replaced was that one sensor,
Which one was
and it was
did you
the
replace
same.
the whole sensor?
I don't mean replace the sensor. We pulled it off, cleaned it out, refilled it with electrolyte, put it back on. It was the same.
Just the same outlet.
One of the new donuts, new sticky donuts.
Okay, you did not take the harness out of the kit and replace the whole harness.
No.
Okay, because we thought you had done that, and that.
Well, you called and asked me that, but there wasn't time to do it, so we
Yeah.
took.
I'm glad you couldn't hear what we said when you guys said that.
We took the chance that the real problem was simply the sensor and the electrolyte, and that's what it was.
That's exactly what it
We
was.
couldn't have picked the worst time from the standpoint of timeline.
Is that right?
We were just getting ready to go into the lab, you know, and boy, everybody's all asses and elbows and suits and underwear and gear and books and everything all over the place.
And I was sitting there half dressed. I didn't want to go any further till we got a go on it. We couldn't get the high bit rate up for you guys to look at it.
Right.
And so
I remember
there just
that.
wasn't any time left, so we changed that when I went ahead and dressed.
Hey Ed, you know when you came up there though, the data, you gave us about 2 minutes when the high gain did lock on, and we got 2 minutes of data, and it still showed the loose sensor. Now, what did you do the second time? You came up, asked us how the data looked, and we said it looked poor yet, and we gave you no go on the suiting to change out the harness.
I don't recall exactly the sequence of events. When I called and asked for you to check it,
Yeah.
as far as I know, we did nothing after that except make sure everything was cinched down and went ahead and dressed.
Didn't you do something with the fluid in there?
Yeah, but I had already done it at that point.
We did that once.
We did I changed the electrolyte. When I called and asked you guys to check it, I did nothing after that except just make sure everything was secure.
Yeah, because you see, the first time you called, the data was poor, and that was the basis for the call to change out the whole harness, because we said, well, it wasn't that sensor, and we didn't have time to talk to you because LOS was coming up, so we said, go ahead and change out the whole thing. But whatever you did, they subsequently corrected it because it came back beautifully, so we assumed you would change out the whole harness.
We sprinkled a little holy water on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, now that you mention it, you know, I just can't remember precisely when we changed it, but I'm thinking that it was already changed at that point.
Okay.
Now, Ed, was this the lower sternal?
It was a lower sternum.
Same as that.
Same as Al's?
We never did change, it was electrolyte that was
Yeah,
replaced.
what I'm
Yeah.
doing is taking it off, by taking it off and cleaning it and putting the new.
Putting it back, just sticking it back. Okay.
And you think you did that before LOS?
Yeah.
He probably did. What we're thinking now happened, probably took a while for it to seat properly, and when he came around, it was good again. Good.
Well, his stayed good then, and then we were having trouble with yours going in. You began to get this wandering baseline on yours again before after we got into the limit. So there was a question in our minds about it. Is there any way we could do to get that better? To make that better. And we were trying to figure some way. Could you reach around when you were in the suit? Is there any way you could get at that thing if you took, like, after the EVA, if you ended up taking the helmet off? Could you get down into the suit here?
You really have to have the upper torso garment, the upper part of the torso garment clear of the body in order to be able to feel that.
In order to even feel
There's no way you can definitely tell, even if the other guy goes through the back zipper and around in front.
We tried that on the ground to see if you
really,
could do that, and that's pretty hard to do, we found out.
The most you can do is press
And
on
after
it.
all that time in quarantine, that's pretty dangerous too.
Yeah. Depends on where his hands is up.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Forget the EVA, just keep fooling with my sensor.
You've got 2 hours to stop that.
Okay. The thing we got from the sleep, and which I think is fairly well covered. If you have anything to add to that, we'd like you to. But what we got out of it is that all of you pretty well never really had a solid long sleep period. That it was broken, and it was things like a couple of hours at a time or something. And I gather that the reasons for that varied. You had some difficulty with wanting to feel some pressure. In Ed's case, I know, and Al mentioned this too, and Stu didn't like the couch, and then you ended up in the limb. The thing was being in the suits all the time, and then the tilt of the limb too. Both those things probably had a lot to do with the sleep activity. Is there anything else that you think you can add? Did you feel that you were rested enough to do the task even with the sleep that you had?
Yeah, but I think we were working on reserves.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, there were 2 days that we felt sloppy. One was the second day out after the excitement of the launch and all that activity and becoming acclimated to the new environment. So we felt like we weren't really clicking along too well on the second day out. And then the day after TEI, although we all apparently slept better after TEI that night, I guess was probably in terms of continuous sleep was probably the best night that we had. Still, the next day we felt like we were not really organized. We were getting things done, but the little things were not being handled as neatly as we would like to see them. So these are the only 2 days we felt that we weren't on top of the flight plan.
I think, Chuck, I feel that for no longer than we work for 9 days, that you can get along on a fairly small amount of sleep, and just your reserves and your discipline and everything else makes you do the job properly. But in my case, I felt very strongly that I was on reserves, that physically I was going downhill, and it was of some concern to me that I wasn't getting enough sleep. I knew I wasn't getting enough sleep, and yet I felt fairly wide awake and alert on most of the days, except the 2 days Al was talking about. But sleeping to me was a very insecure experience.
Now, how do you mean insecure? You mean because of this wanting something?
Yeah, wanting to feel like you, the best I can say, feel like you were in a bed.
Yeah.
Wanting to feel some pressure or to be lying on something. It was a pleasant.
Could you turn the tape recorder on?
I knew we'd get back to that. It was really a pleasant experience to be in 0G during the daytime, I thought. It wasn't quite so pleasant an experience at night.
Well, did you feel, that brings up this thing, did you feel, I gather from Al's comments in particular, this business of using your legs and your feet to try and hang on to something, which has been described by other guys too at some length. Did you have a feeling that was the cause of this muscle business in your back more than, because that's been described and they've never been able to really put a handle on why they felt they had that. They've had this sort of a feeling that if they could just stretch that real good, it'd be great. You think it is due to the fact that were trying to lock onto something? Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, as soon as, that's what I analyzed it after the first couple of days. I think we discussed it, as a matter of fact. And so we started exercising and then deliberately take time out to relax, not only during the sleep period, but also try to adapt ourselves to a relaxed state during the awake periods in the seats or on the optics or in the tunnel or something. And after the second day, it kind of went away.
Yeah, that small of the back problem was gone after a couple of days.
Wow.
And in fact, I was kind of surprised at that. Woke up that first morning, and my back had bothered me during the night. And I didn't realize that Al and Ed's back was bothering them at that time too, you know. And I said, you know, I really didn't get that much sleep, but this sounds crazy as all hell, because I can lay on that big fine king-size bed at the house, and if I get a lot of sleep, you know, if I lay there for say 10 or 11 hours, why the small of my back bothers me.
Sure.
And I said to these guys, I said, hey, this is crazy. I didn't sleep that much last night, but my back feels just like I'd got about 11 hours sleep. And they said, well, mine does too. And then, you know, then we got to talking about it. And but it was there, and it was very conscious to me that first night. In fact, I thought probably my back kept me from going to sleep as much as the new environment.
Yeah.
Rather than the 0G, because I was always conscious of my back bothering me.
Did you ever think about taking aspirin or anything to do anything with that? Did you?
I've never taken aspirin at all.
For the
No.
for the 8th thing?
I think until the time we discussed it, I was convinced that the reason I was feeling bad in the back was just not urinating for so damn long during that hole.
I wondered if you
in the
wouldn't
first
think
day.
that. Yeah.
I did think that.
Yeah.
And then after we started discussing it, I said, well, that may not be the problem, or if so, that's just part of the problem.
Everybody's got it.
Everybody's got it.
Yeah.
And I agree with Al that it has something to do with the way you try to use your feet to stabilize yourself. And I believe, although I couldn't see myself, I believe that when I was relaxing in the spacecraft in 0G, I was in a curved position. And it felt good to throw the shoulders back and straighten out, or to take the exergem and get some tension on those back muscles.
Well, you tend to assume it's sort of like a fetal position. If you just totally relax, your legs will tend to float up and come up in a sort of a semi-seated position, and your hands would tend to float out about like this, and your back tends to bend some, so it tends to assume that kind of a position. If you just let all your muscles go, so you don't have any muscle float on.
Oh, I tell you, that one of the good things for that back too is just exactly that position. Just get yourself up like this.
That's right.
And I know that first night when my back was bothering me, I tried to sleep a good bit. I'd reach down and grab a hold of my booties, and I would lay there like that with pulling some pressure on my legs, and it would really help that small of your back.
I found both things, either straightening out to put some tension on the back muscles, or as Stu says, double on out and pull the other way.
How about when you got back onto the carrier now, and you got into a bed then for the first time back on in a 1G environment? Did you have any feeling? Did you have the feeling that you were real heavy, that you were sinking into the bed? Did you have that when you were on a table or anything, on the X-ray table or anything of that sort? None of you experienced that. How about weight of clothes? Did you have a
Weight
feeling
of
that your
clothes?
pants were too heavy, or they were falling, or anything like that when you first got back?
Only thing I can remember about laying down on the bunk was it was a good relief to be able to lay on your stomach. You know, I generally, I don't know which way I sleep most, back or stomach or what, but you know, I always had the impression, no matter in what position you are in the spacecraft, you're on your back. And so I remember thinking of that. The first thing I laid down in the bunk was I stretched out on my back, and I thought, gee, I've been this way for 9 days. I think I'll turn over. So I rolled over on my stomach. It felt pretty good.
Okay, did any of you have any dreams at all? Did you ever dream in flight at all?
I did, but I couldn't for the life of me recall.
Well, that
Absolutely.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, I had dreams.
But you did have dream activity, at least, in the
Yeah.
0G state. Good, okay.
Yeah, I think of that heavy feeling, Chuck. The only time I noticed it was after we had landed. We were still in the spacecraft. We unstrapped, and the spacecraft was bobbing around a little bit, but not too much. Got down the LEB right away, and the first couple of steps, combination of the rocking the spacecraft and being in 1G again, for perhaps, I don't know, 30 seconds, no more than that, certainly.
That was my experience
And
too.
I started doing some deep knee bends right away for, maybe need 10, 12 of those babies, and I was right back at home again and continued to feel that way. No muscle soreness, no feeling of heaviness or anything from there on out.
Did you, this feeling that you experienced when you first went down the LEV, was that all over, or was that just heaviness in the legs, or did you just feel heavy all over for a
Just
few
feel
seconds?
heavy all over. I think,
Just all over. How about when you first got some G on re-entry? Did you have a sensation that you had a lot more G than you were really registering? Did you go through that?
I don't remember anything over 2G. Was I supposed to?
Of course, these two guys were.
You don't, huh?
You'd like that?
No,
Everybody else is done?
No, I think you become very sensitive to G, like even ullage on in the spacecraft, you know, or well, that'd be just the only time you'd really feel a G would be the ullage, as well as the SPS engine, of course, you know. But on entry, certainly, you know, as you're going through 1G, it certainly doesn't seem like 1G. You're sensitive to the G.
Since I wasn't quite as busy during that initial period as they were, I didn't have tracking tasks to keep me occupied. I probably felt it more, or was conscious of it more than they were, and it felt to me like one hell of a load. In particular, my one task was to be watching the time, and I couldn't get my arm up to see the watch until after peak G let off. And then about 4 or 5G, I could pull my arm up and take a look at it. And I had the same sensation that Al did. Right after I got out of the couch, I felt very, very heavy. And then with just a little bit of motion, it seemed to go away. And I'd say it kind of described a very sharp rise. The return to normal was a very sharp rise, and then an asymptotic to 1G, because I still stumbled a couple of times getting out of the helicopter. But I felt fine, except I just didn't have the sureness of footing that I would like to have.
But that didn't last as far as footing. You know, that's an interesting thing that the Russians had after their 18-day flight. They had some real marked mobility problems that lasted for days, and you didn't have. We've never had anything of that degree. We've always had some initial footing problem. You know, just getting used to being back in the 1G environment, and then you're on a ship too, which is moving around, and this didn't last for any of you for longer than a few minutes, really getting out of the house.
I never felt lightheaded at all.
No, neither did I lightheaded.
How about putting your feet in the right place? Did you feel like when you were walking that you were walking normally that your steps were normal and everything, that you didn't have to worry about where your feet were?
No, I think that up to the point we got in the MQF, I felt that I took a little care to make sure my foot was going where it was supposed to be going. But it wasn't out of the ordinary, you know, really severe or anything.
No.
It seemed to be improving very rapidly from a very heavy state for the first 30 to 45 seconds after I got out of the couch to within an hour or so after I was in the MQF, the footing was very sure. But I do remember stumbling once going into the MQF from the helicopter, and I didn't see anything to stumble over. I stumbled.
You know, I think, hell, you'd do that right now, though. If you're going to walk out of that door with a television camera on you, and you're going to walk up to the front steps, you'd be more conscious of your footing.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
You'd be more conscious of your footing, whether or not you'd been in 0G or not.
Sure, if you're carrying a load, you're going to look very carefully where you're sitting.
Yeah.
You don't want to not get knocked down.
Yeah, and you in particular know that, you know, you've just come back from a flight, and people are going to be watching how you're walking and all of this stuff. So, you know, it's in your mind, and, you know, you've got to walk this 30 feet to the MQF, so just naturally you're more conscious of where you're going to put your
Well, I may have psyched myself into stumbling for that reason, but nevertheless I did stumble. In spite of the fact that I was conscious of the fact that the TV cameras were on.
Okay. Did you notice any distortion of your facial features at all? When you look at the TV, the in-flight TV, as we watched you, you know, when inside the spacecraft, you get the impression that your faces are not like they are now, that they're much rounder, that's a thing that you see on the TV. Is that true? Did you feel that when you were looking at each other?
No, but I observed that when I saw a picture of us taken from that TV, and I didn't think anything about it until you mentioned it.
It looks you look quite round. You look much different than you do now. It's very rounded, but you weren't aware of that. Looking at each other.
You know, Al Bean had made a comment of that in the 12 report, that after he got into orbit, he looked around and everybody looked 20 pounds heavier, and I remembered that, and I looked at these guys, you know, they look just as bad then as they do now. I had remembered that comment from Al Bean's report, and I really didn't notice it.
The 12 crew, I guess, been the one that was the most impressed with that of anybody, and they noted that they felt even that they had redness of the face for several hours after they first achieved orbit. But,
well, it's the general feeling of fullness, I think.
Yeah.
Is there.
But I mean, just to look at a person and see his face puffed up, I didn't notice that at all. Maybe it was just lack of observation, but
Or maybe for the first 5 hours we were too busy doing other things. Observe that.
Did you have any sensation that in the first 24 hours in flight that you urinated more than you normally would, than you did the rest of the flight time?
I don't know.
That's a hard thing to remember, but do you have any idea that you did that at all?
I went
I know
7
that
hours
first-
without it all. I never used my UCTA.
That first one was a whopper, I know that.
Of course, you got a lot of excitement to make it a whopper anyway, so it's hard to... No real...
No feeling one way or the other on that, is there?
Okay. Can you comment on the work that you did EVA out on the lunar surface as far as what you felt based versus your ground training? Did you think it was harder, easier, or about the same? And secondly, as a second question to that, did either of you feel really physically tired to the point that you knew that you were really tired during the EVAs, even going up cone?
I felt, of course, it was an order of magnitude easier than 1G training. Just no comparison at all, as we expected it to be. And as far as being tired, I think I had already made up my mind that I did not want to sweat on the moon. That I was going to keep the water up, and I was going to keep rested enough so that I didn't sweat for consumables and for fatigue purposes. So I never really felt tired. I did feel occasionally that I was approaching the point where I'd have to have more cooling or take a break. But it wasn't because of a tired feeling, it was the desire to program and plan consumables the way we wanted to.
And not be hot. Okay.
So I felt in my mind that I was stopping short of the point of fatigue as a direct plan of not wanting to use up consumables.
How about you, Al?
Well, it's kind of hard to equate the pre-flight stuff with flight stuff. First place, you're not using the LCG in the pre-flight stuff, and you're lifting essentially 1G pieces of equipment around and so on. So it's pretty hard to equate the two in my mind as to whether it was harder or easier in flight from the standpoint of the total work output. But certainly, standpoint of ease of mobility and so on, as Ed says, it's a lot easier to get around. I think you travel a lot faster, easier on the lunar surface as a general comment to start off. EVA 1, I did not feel uncomfortable at any time at all. EVA 2, I think the fact that I was aware of the workload was manifested primarily in the respiration rate as opposed to anything else. I didn't feel as though the body heat was going up too much, the deep body heat was going up too much. I think this is primarily because of the circulating fluid in the LCG. And I was not aware of any profuse sweating, just a little faint tinge of sweating, a blush, whatever you want to call it. It was when I went to the medium flow on the water. So I think, and of course, you're not really aware of increase in heart rate either, unless you specifically stop and measure it somehow.
Right.
So I think to me, the thing that was most obvious about the increased workload was the respiration rate. And at times, I think we suggested climbing the steepest grade of the crater that cone that we stop and take a rest. I think you all suggest that
Right.
as well. back in the command module. Never really felt like I was behind the power curve as far as the total workload was concerned.
Well, we'll try and give you some firm feeling for what happened with your EVAs when we do this later. You know, we can show you actually what you know. You did have some times where you both got heart rates that were up in the 150 area. You and this is why we felt, and your respiratory rates were very audible, and we didn't have a respiration trace on you at that time, as you know, but you did have very audible respiratory rates, and it was obvious that you were increasing those. And Al, I think you began to store, I think the thing is you kept yours on men for a long time, and then when you did turn up to medium flow, you just left it there a short period of time, and it didn't kick your rate down as much because you still were maintaining some of that heat in there. Now, it wasn't enough to make you sweat apparently. And then when you started doing that, turning it on a little bit longer, each time it just settled right back down. You didn't have any trouble with it at all like that. But both of you came down very well. When you would rest, your rates dropped down. And that's contrary to what happened on 12, where they didn't drop down when they rested. And yours did very well. They just dropped, they'd come right on down as soon as you stopped doing the activity. So that do you have a feeling that you could have, do you have a feeling, any recommendations about extending EVAs now? I mean, do you feel that it would be possible with proper consumables, of course, that you could, that it's physically possible to do that?
I sure do. The thing that bothered me was the worrying about consumables. Knowing that we were getting a higher metabolic load, a higher heart rate, more oxygen consumption going up Cone Crater, and that I was spending more time on between minimum and intermediate cooling because we were deliberately rushing to try to make up time. I started worrying about consumables, and especially in the water and the oxygen. And I felt that was a limiting factor. I didn't feel that I was the limiting factor. Just the oxygen and the water I was consuming were bothering me.
Well, we tried to give you the word that, you know, that you were pretty fat on consumables really at the time. We thought you were trying to save consumables, obviously.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah, and understandably so. And so we wanted you to know that you had enough and you could go to medium flow without really getting yourself in a hole was the thing we wanted you to know.
And after you did that, I spent considerably more time on between minimum and intermediate cooling.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, right.
Al
So
did
did
too.
Al. Yeah, you both did.
Incidentally,
I think that the comment is, I'd like to comment about total workload with respect to the 2-day period. I wouldn't want to see a crew ever plan to do any more than we did in those 2 days.
Oh, amen.
As far as I'm concerned, that's about as heavy a workload as anybody ought to do. And certainly, if you're going to go out for longer periods of EVA, you ought to allow longer periods of resting.
Amen.
and make sure somehow that they get the rest.
Yeah.
Just allowing the time doesn't necessarily assure rest.
Well, tell me, if you had, you know, in the limb, I gather one of the things that you think would help, of course, would be getting out of the suit. That certainly would help if you could get out of the suit in the limb, no question about that. If you had something for sleep, would you take it? Would you guys have taken it in the limb if you had had something for sleep? Do you think?
I don't think so, because I don't know about Ed, but I certainly don't take that kind of medication here on the ground.
It's an individual thing, quite obviously, and it just depends on.
Try to do things as closely in space as you can to the ground environment is probably the way everybody would.
Right.
Go. So if you have people that do that in the ground, probably would help them.
I prefer to see us use a more natural means of getting to sleep as opposed to an artificial
You'd
means.
like to
Yeah.
have something to sleep on, what you say.
Back to that again.
I think the suit's a big thing, as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
It keeps coming up.
Couldn't roll around, even you couldn't roll around in a hammock, and the damn neck ring was hitting the back of the neck, and.
Yeah.
There was one thing, Chuck, about fatigue. The only thing that I felt fatigued, any muscles I felt fatigued, was a darn hand muscle in the right hand because of that glove.
Because you were fighting that glove.
Yeah. And working the core tubes, unscrewing the core tubes. One of them I couldn't get by myself. Getting the caps off of them, that was very fatiguing, and that arm gave out.
How about when you're carrying the barbell out there and you're getting this thing? You said you had to do it like
Well,
this.
that was tiring, just because it's so cumbersome and it was flopping all around. But I eventually put it across my arms like that, and it just aside from the workload of carrying it out, it was no problem. It was heavy.
Was the weight seemed different? Because you commented at the time, and it sounded and it looked like you were having trouble getting out there with that thing. Was it the weight of it, or was it just the fact that it was vibrating, that it was sort of like a fishing
It was
rod?
mostly the vibration of it, just the flopping of it.
Flopping up and down.
However, I think that it was heavier than I expected from the 1.6G mock-up.
Uh-huh.
But we had never carried it that far in training, and I think we've made that recommendation that at least once the guys ought to carry it
The whole way.
The whole way. But it was primarily the flopping of those weights on the end that were giving me trouble.
Okay. Let's get the, I gather that on this bowel movement thing that the preps and so forth, you had a good comment in there that went fairly well. You all did the same thing we knew pre-flight anyway. Now, how did it work out though? And the thing, do you remember, can you just tell us each one how you went? I gather Ed went almost to the end without having one, according to a comment.
Yeah.
Where did you go? When did
Bad
you?
he didn't.
I went to the morning of the 8th day.
To the morning of the 8th day was the first one.
And
that's the only one, I assume.
Yeah. I didn't plan it that way. What I wanted to do was to have one bowel movement before we went to the surface.
Yeah, I remember.
So that would take care of that period of time. And I went around with a bag on my fanny for about 12 hours, hoping I could do something, and never did. And at one point, I even wished that heck we had a laxative aboard to help me do that. I'm not sure whether that's a good idea or not, but it sure seemed like it at the time. And I was really concerned that I need to have a bowel movement while we're on the surface.
Yeah.
And I got through that period, figured, well, we got it made. Be good to get back to the command module and use the bag, and I still couldn't. And it was till the 8th day, and that was a whopper.
Did you ever get any cramps or anything with it though?
No
You never
cramps,
had any
nothing,
gut
nothing.
disturbance at all with it? Fine. Okay.
I wasn't uncomfortable. I didn't even have a feeling of fullness.
Yeah, good. How about you, Al? How did your cycle go?
Well, I had 1.5 bags on the 3rd day, I believe it was. And then another bag on about the 7th day. Sorry.
And no problem with it. I mean, there were normal consistency and sort of as far as
But that's really uncivilized.
that. I agree with you.
Oh,
We gotta find a better method.
The total hygiene thing in this thing is so archaic,
gross.
it's unbelievable. I mean, we just got to do better than that if we're going to keep people in space. That's
It's really
all.
the only time I didn't feel civilized, you know?
Yeah.
I just really felt uncivilized during that whole process.
The whole mess, yeah, as a big man.
And the ability to clean up afterwards, and in fact, is the ability to maintain personal hygiene throughout the flight.
Totally.
We need better equipment.
Stu, how about you?
I went to 80 hours was the first one. I remember distinctly because I said between 80 and 81 hours approaching LOI while I'm going to do it. And
you did.
which pleasantly surprised me too while we're on the gory subject, because pre-flight I anticipated that I might have to use the bag more than that, because in my normal course of events it's very common for me to hit the head at least twice a day. And but so I was pleasantly surprised that I got to 80 hours. And then I had one other one, and it was after TEI. I guess the next day after TEI, and I don't remember what time frame it was, or was it? Yeah, I guess it was. It was the day after TEI, and. Okay, I don't remember the GET or anything, and I can't even associate it with anything except these guys in their gas masks. I don't know what else was going on at that time.
Yeah, these guys. Okay. When did you first start to use the nose drops? How far into the? Do you remember what day?
3rd day, wasn't it?
3, I think.
3rd day.
And do you feel that was a? I'm a little bit confused about you're describing this fullness, and still, do you feel that this was a thing that was associated with this fullness that was due to the weightlessness, or do you think it was an oxygen effect, just due to the drying and so forth? And
I never felt that dry. And at the time, I thought it could have been either or both. And so I just treated it symptomatically with about one drop in each nostril, and it was completely effective for the next 10, 12 hours.
well, you could hear it. This is a fairly routine. You hear this in the guys' voices, and you know they're doing it. You know, you hear this full feeling that they have. Sometimes they get a little bit of hoarse sensation with it too, and it comes and goes. And you described it, I thought, very well yesterday. You know, sometimes in the mornings you'd wake up and it'd be better in the morning.
You know,
Well,
Chuck,
I don't know, this is kind of a subjective feeling. Kind of felt that maybe the whole full head sensation was related to a readjustment of the whole cardiovascular system, and therefore,
It is.
if you could relax a little bit in the evening, it ought to help it. This is my theory.
Yeah.
So maybe I kind of wished it that way. I don't know. It's just a general feeling, nothing to substantiate quantitatively. And I think as far as the nose drops are concerned, it helped with the mucus, but it didn't help the overall fullness sensation.
Did they work all right? I know we got a special one with Stu here, but did they work all right? I mean, did the
Just like
drop-
it should have, or
Yes,
like I
it cleared out
expected to.
it made it clear out the mucus temporarily, a few hours.
Yeah. Okay. And Stu, what about now? Did you just give yourself too big a slug? Is that what happened to it, or?
I think I probably did, Chuck. I'm sure that's what happened. You know, I said, well, I hadn't used any up till then, but on entry, you know, and I thought, well, I think I'll just use some of these beauties. And I think gave me too big a dose in the right nostril here, because boy, my eyes started watering, and I could feel it in my sinuses and everything else. And but it lasted maybe an hour, and by the time, I guess I probably did that a couple, 3 hours prior to entry, and an hour later, you know, I think most of the symptoms have gone away. Either that or you're getting closer to entry and you stop worrying about it. But yeah, I did. I think I overdid it, and I just, you know, I hardly ever take any nose drops or anything, and maybe I just got too much in there. It's probably pretty powerful stuff.
It is powerful. I know in 1G or here, if I take more than a couple of drops of Afrin, if I use drops instead of spray, I get the same effect that Stu does.
Yeah. Oh, that's not
It's a
uncommon.
burning and a real drying sensation.
And it wasn't a lack of briefing or not trying it before flight or anything like that. I think I was just a little overzealous in the application.
Well, you know,
2 drops are good, give it 4.
Yeah, you know, what the hell.
Did you feel that you got any? Did you get a tachycardia with that? Did you get a real increase in heart rate with that?
Oh, I don't have the foggiest idea.
You didn't feel it anyway.
Yeah.
Gee,
Y'all had the.
He pumped a little more adrenaline. He got mad at us for suggesting that we usually use the goddamn thing.
Yeah, I was teed off at the suggestion.
Did any? You all had some evidence in your ears on the first exam when Bill saw you of having some bubbles in there. And did you have any sensation during re-entry that you were having trouble clearing your ears? Any of you? No sensation.
No.
it's rather surprising to me. I was looking for it, and surprisingly enough, I had no problems at all.
Not a bit.
I could feel the pressure change, but
Felt like
I
it-
could hear them pop. But you know, I did that too on my suit integrity check. I could feel the pressure.
Yeah.
You know, and you just sort
Sure.
of pop it. Hey, I'd like to make a comment before I forget about this voice sounding full. You know, I noticed that you'll do that a lot if you. I think maybe it's because the atmosphere is dry, but if you're doing a lot of talking, and then you come on, and I would notice myself sounding full, and I say, gee, I'm sounding like that, and my head wasn't consciously full at all, but I could tell in my voice that I was sounding.
Hear it
over,
in your voice.
if you've been doing a lot of talking.
Right. Well, that's true. If you do, you know, like if you end up just talking all the time, like if you end up here like in a session yesterday where you talked a lot during the DB, you may even have that kind of thing. If you just talk a lot during the day, you can have it.
We don't have too much else to do in here, Charles.
Yeah, I know.
Now we're back to that.
Hey, Chuck, comment on those Afrin.
We're looking for somebody to cut a glove. Who is it? Maybe that's going to happen, Bill.
Comment on the Afrin bottles. They, the pressure gets to them and they separate into a jillion bubbles. That emulsion is very bubbly and filled with air. As soon as you take the cap off, it comes out, starts leaking.
It's a low haulage in the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's kind of difficult to control that stuff when you use it.
That was the first time you opened the bottle or after? you-
Always, always.
Every time you open
Yeah.
it.
What technique did they use for applying the nose drops?
Okay, Clarence, so what technique did you use for applying the nose drops? How did you put them in?
Very gentle squeeze, trying to get just one drop at a time out.
Just put the dropper up. And let
Put
her
it
go.
in there and hosed it.
Just like we told him to.
Yeah.
Good boy, Red.
What did you tape those PRDs down in your suits?
Tape them?
You'll never believe it, Charles. We had zipper pockets.
You're kidding! No.
It's unbelievable.
They were there.
We pulled out those coveralls and there were zippers on them.
First time we'd seen zippers in the whole training cycle.
I'll be
Oh, so
dead.
they're not on the training suits, they're just on the flight suits?
Just on
is that
flight.
it? Okay.
Well, how about that? Okay. What do you know?
Figuring that we had requested it way back and forgotten about that we'd made the official request and it was already in the bill and nobody knew about it. And none of the training devices were that way, but lo and behold, out of the package they came and there was the zippers.
There they were. Well, that's great.
They were great too. Really nice.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't understand where that is.
Well, when you remove your PGAs, Al, is there a point in the checklist where we should include the removal of the PRDs back into your flight coveralls, or is that not there? Or what?
It already says, take all the items out of here.
Oh, it does? Okay.
It
Yeah,
says
if that happens to be one that's by itself,
I see.
and if you forget that extra pocket's there, you forget it.
Well, now, it's listed in there, when we take the suits off the first day. I guess, you know, and then when you bring the suits back over, from the limb, why, you know, pretty rushed timeline, that, it wouldn't, I don't know whether it'd be any good to put that in your timeline book or not, because that time your main purpose is just get the suits and get them stowed.
Yeah, you said you jerked them down and got them zipped up in those bags pretty fast.
Right into the bag.
Okay.
Probably wouldn't hurt, I guess, when we list the items to take out of the suits. When we come back to the limb, we can just add PRDs in there as another item. We
Yeah.
list sunglasses and pencils and all the rest of them. We can add PRDs.
That's what
Hey, sunglasses remind me. When you said you used sunglasses, you're the only one who did use some sunglasses.
Corrective lenses.
Is that right?
I use prescription lenses.
corrective lenses.
Oh, okay. When did you use the corrective one?
A couple times when I had to read small print in the flight plan thing.
In the command module deal.
Yeah, with the helmet off all the time. I didn't use them.
No, I didn't.
I'd use it from time to time in the simulators, particularly in the LMS. The only time when I can get adapters to low light levels.
Yeah. Did you have any feeling about that on the lunar surface, Al, that the light levels were bothersome to you because of that? Because that is a very typical thing. That's an interesting
The
point.
light levels were generally higher in the lunar module. The thing that you don't simulate on the LMS is the difference between day and night on the side of the moon.
How about out
The
on the
LMS
surface?
is dark all the time for all practical purposes.
How about out on the surface, when you were actually out on the surface and had your visor down?
Yeah.
Did those light levels bother you at all? I mean, did you feel that you were having any difficulties in
It's
The
either
only problems I have is with reading small print at close distances when the light level is
Yeah.
low. And I had the problem in the LMS. A couple times in the CMS and the LMS, I don't know how many times I
Yeah.
broke them out, but I don't know, perhaps
Yeah.
6 or 8 times.
Try to read that damn card. It's about the only time I've ever seen you use them.
Yeah, but
In
on the
CMS.
surface, Chuck,
Yeah.
it's either stark white, dazzling white, or it's absolutely black.
there? Or it's
So
black?
I don't think eyesight has a great deal to do with it at that point.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
I think you've covered most of that stuff about the vision on the surface and so forth pretty well in there. I think you've done that very well in the thing, so I don't think we need to if we have something that comes back up for that, well, we'll get the word to you. But as far as I can tell from getting through all that so far, I think we've got most of that covered.
You know, I might point out to you, if you want to pursue the visibility further for any sort of medical things, if you look at the photographs, in my opinion, they're exactly what we saw.
Is that right?
If you look cross sun, the visibility is great. If you look up sun, everything's glared out by the sun. If you look down sun, all of the gentle, subtle rolling and the subdued craters, they just disappear on you.
Yeah.
But cross sun visibility is great. The photographs show it the same way.
You know, just real briefly on that same subject, it's kind of hard to tell when you're looking at just negatives of these 70 millimeters, but I was looking at some of the zero phase pictures last night and how the targets would disappear at zero phase. It does it on the films also. And
same way.
As it turned out, I'll have to get, see what the prints look like. But my first impression is that I didn't see much more than what the camera did at zero phase, which is going to surprise me because I would have thought different.
Yeah.
But I don't take that as any sort of data until I've had a chance to really see a blown up print. I'm just looking at some negatives in here. But that's my first impression.
We've always said that the eyeball can see more than the film can, but with our particular films, I think there's pretty good correspondence.
Probably going to be about the same. That's great.
You're not insinuating we have bad eyeballs.
No, we just have good film.
Yeah, that's
That's a preliminary opinion.
Hey, on the sunglasses, I guess you got it. As far as I know, nobody even broke their sunglasses out.
Right. And you didn't feel you needed them.
No.
Right.
Well, I think the only time we needed them was when there was sun shafting in, but in PTC, if you just wait a couple of minutes, it'll be gone.
It goes away. Okay. Ed, there was a time at 196 hours where we lost your respiratory, so your CPN. Did you notice whether was the signal conditioner disconnected then, or was there a sensor loose or anything? Did you notice?
There was nothing different. It just quit, apparently.
It just quit. You couldn't see anything obvious as to why.
No, I went down and went over the whole system. We checked the sensors, checked the belt, checked the connection, and we were getting too close to entry to really do a great deal of troubleshooting. So.
No, there was no point to do it then. And okay, fine. Well, we're going to check those things. We never had a signal conditioner as such fail, and that's one of the things that's sort of interesting. If it wasn't a sensor problem, we want to be sure and check those signal conditioners out. Okay, I think we got most of this mobility thing done in there.
While we're talking about that biomed belt, let me just say that I think my urine bag problem, the UCTA problem, is kind of related to that belt in that, the UCTA is held by that elastic strap.
Right.
And I think the problem in getting that hose length correct has to do with the fact that the UCTA doesn't always end up in the same place. You try to get it below the belt so that it doesn't get on top of it and increase the dimension in what you've already done. And I think in doing that, I probably wore it a little more, wore the gun down the hip more maybe.
Yeah.
In retrospect, if there's some way that thing could be fixed, just
in
like the bottom
place.
belt is fixed, then it wouldn't move up and down, and therefore you can adjust the hose length a little better.
I wore mine differently. I wore mine over the bio belt. That may be the difference.
Yeah, well, I think it's a question of fixing the vertical height of that thing, so you can get the right length in the hose. Because mine was up and down, and I think when you reached in, you probably found it was sagging down as a result of being full of fluid on the one hand, but also because I used to wear it below the belt on the other.
Yeah.
But his hose had a definite kink in it. It came out of the fitting and just made a sharp kink, and it was bent, just like you see the hose.
Yeah. Very good. Did you feel any real dryness of skin as such, or dryness of your lips or your nose at all? Did you ever have any sensation that way during?
Not exceptionally for me.
I sure didn't have any obvious sensation of dryness.
I don't know whether Stu did, I noticed his lips were cracking about the 4th or 5th day after we got back from TEI. But I don't know if you got it or not.
No, I didn't feel dry. In fact, I noticed they're cracking in here too. No, I didn't feel any dryness particularly at all.
Okay. Did they talk to you about the Phil Chapman wanted to tack on the light flash thing on the end of this thing here?
Yeah.
So if once you tell them to come on in and let them get that out of the way then.
Hey Chuck, just real fast on, I know you've got to take the data and you're looking ahead to the longer flights, and I'm not trying to downplay it, but this weight loss, I think in my case, I don't want it to be misconstrued. I was just sitting here thinking, I weighed less after our field trip to Iceland than I did after this flight too. A weight loss of me of 5 pounds is no, just comes and goes with no problem at all.
Well, that's why the body water things are going to be pretty important.
Yeah.
To know is that really it? Is it really a total body water loss kind of thing? That'll be a real important plug to hang on there. That's why we'll go over that with you so that it is clear.
Mm-hmm.
We won't have total body water or extracellular fluid space until after quarantine. That will be done in beta.
Those are
beta
beta
emitters.
We're just doing the gamma counting here.
Why can't we get it out? We'll argue that with you later.
We're just not equipped.
Let's get it out. I'll talk with you later. There's a scientist. Let's go. Where's Phil? Yeah, there he is. Phil, go out.
Hey, y'all want any coffee? I got a big pot right here.
Yeah, I'm coming over to get some right now. Oh, you
Dick suggested that we should tack on a few questions about light flashes at the end of this briefing. That's what we're about to do. What we'd like to do is to clarify some of the subjective impressions that you got of what you saw in the way of light flashes, and also to clarify the conditions under which you saw them.
Excuse me, could you stand back from the mic just a little bit? That's a boom mic.
Phil,
and that
why don't you sit right here? It'll pick it up.
It'll really blast us out.
Let's go. You need to get reasonably close to the mic. You should be right in the middle.
Is there a way that the room could be dark? That the room could be dark?
Yes.
In a while.
You know what? Okay.
The first question we got is the streaks that you saw. Were they a very sharp phenomenon, or were they rather diffuse, like fuzzy?
Ones I saw were very sharp. There was no mistaking what it was. It was a streak so long, instantaneously disappeared.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Both the single streak and the double shot appeared to be very clear to me.
They were quite clear, and I think I made the comment over the loop that most of my streaks appeared to be on the periphery. And for the first several days, I got the impression that this direction was predominant. Later on, it appeared that I don't think I could get that good a pattern, but that was my first impression for the first couple of days.
The next question is, was there any apparent direction of propagation? And could you tell it was coming from one side to the other, or was it just a flash?
Several times you did say from the left to the right or something like that.
Tried to correlate it, but in my case, I couldn't really correlate a pattern out of it.
Yeah, I would think that the time period in which we tried to report them streak by streak, flash by flash, was representative. And it was my feeling that it was generally random during that time period, and therefore generally random throughout the times that we were noticing them.
No, I meant, could you detect that it was moving from one side to the other in general? Yes. It was moving in a
specific
Oh,
flash.
and a specific flash, yes, yes.
But you could see it as a travel from one side to the other? You really
I think
could.
we tried to report it that way, didn't we?
Yes, you
Yeah,
did report it.
that's the way
That's
the
what's
impression
puzzling
was.
us, because it happens, it has to be very fast, you know.
Isn't that question kind of redundant then?
Didn't believe you.
Was there some character to these flashes that had some aspect of direction? I mean, were they all the same rod shaped, or did they have a tail on them?
Well, what I saw, what I reported as a streak was simply that. Now, maybe the way we determined the direction subconsciously was that it was a ball of light moving in a direction, leaving a tail. But I can't say that for sure. All I reported was a streak, and I had the impression of it moving from one direction to the other. And I reported that direction, and I can't clarify it much more than that.
Maybe while you're asking a question, if we just douse the lights, I think they can see this in the darkened room, but just try it. The idea is to try to see whether this is what you saw or similar to it.
I think you need the lights out there.
Well, can you see anything?
Yeah, except that's what it looked like, except it was traveling. In other words, it started out and it definitely progressed across the field of view.
Direction of motion per individual.
Was it that bright?
Yeah, except you're not traveling. It was traveling.
You saw it as a point that made a streak.
I never did see two simultaneously either.
Neither did I.
Now, you have two streaks on that. I never saw that.
At one time you said you saw a semicolon shaped thing.
So what?
A semicolon.